Hey everybody, this is Eli Camp, and I am doing a recording of fermentation for two reasons. One, for folks who couldn't make the Homestead meeting in Pryor on tomorrow night, sorry, don't scare anybody, the 8th, tomorrow night. And so that I could have a recording that I could share out on my social media. I think this is so important that people learn how to do this. Antibiotics are being prescribed at an alarming rate all over the world. But, here I am in this little corner of Oklahoma, and, I think I can help people help themselves restore their bodies to health, which it's always trying to do. All right, but let's jump into this. My thing will work there. So I thought for those of you who don't know me, I tell you a little bit about myself quickly and what I know and can teach you. And I love to teach. If I could go back in time, maybe I just would have become an educator. But, then there's the whole idea of you have to go through life and get all these experiences. And then at some point you can become a good teacher. I earned my degree in naturopathic medicine. It's an ND degree from the Southwest College. Before I went to medical school, I got a Bachelor of Science. The major was zoology, or botany, but I took classes, a lot of classes for zoology because I thought I was going to be an MD. I had to choose, right? I was accepted into both programs, and I'm so glad I went the naturopathic route. And ecology and business. So I went back to school late, and so I already had life and experiences, and I knew what I was good at and what I wanted to know more of. I'm a grandmother. My gray hair gives me away, maybe. I turned mother, so we adopted my son's children when they were babies. And he's grown now. He's 30-something. He was born in 84, so he's in his 30s. And these two are amazing, thriving teenagers. It was a great decision that we made. I have a small private practice of patients, and I'm full up. I say that because I have a 2-year waiting list, so I just tell people right up front, I am in practice, but I don't have spots for new people, new patients. I manage Long Shadows Ranch, which is a teaching homestead farm. I am author of several books, The Unvaccinated Child, a treatment guide for parents and caregivers. I just released Smoke Rings, a book that helps people who smoke or used to smoke or live with someone who smokes find better health, and it has nothing to do with quitting. There isn't anything in there about quitting, because the reality is only 3% of smokers are successful at quitting, and so while they are or are not on that journey, they could be doing a lot of things for their body to help it heal itself. They're damaging it every day, but the body's trying to heal that every day, so we can support that. I also wrote a homeopathy book. It's a foundational approach. It was meant to be a college textbook, which it is, but I ended up writing it so that anybody could use it and understand homeopathy. Medicine Talk is a company I founded 20 years ago. It educates the public about naturopathic medicine, and it produces materials to help other holistic healthcare practitioners who have a business in marketing and all kinds of stuff. I used to go to all of the schools and teach this business seminar to help doctors, because they don't get business in school. But you know what? I'm here as a homesteader with the knowledge of being a doctor and all this great stuff we're learning. I'm here to talk to you about fermentation. And it's going to come from the perspective, all the medicine I talk about in here, because there's a small part of that. I can't talk to you and not include really fun, healthy, informative things about health. It's just my nature now. So it's going to come from that perspective that the body can heal itself. If there's symptoms of illness, the body is trying to heal something. And it's the doctor's job. I believe this. The only job of a doctor is to assist a body in its healing work. Now, is that surgery to keep somebody from dying because they were just in an accident? Probably. I mean, that's where I'd want to be. Is it handling chronic illness? No. That's the area of the naturopathic doctor. And in acute illness, there's many things naturopaths can do and you can do, right? I do homestead medicine for people. I teach you how to be your own doctor at home and save the medical professionals for when you really, really, really need them because you can't figure it out. I already mentioned this. This is stuff I got in college. It's stuff I was doing before school and stuff I did after for 20 years before as we started homesteading. The books, the parenting. So I know a lot about medicine, and I know a lot about most of these things. I'm still new to homesteading. We're learning, but we do research, we try different things. When it works, we settle on that. And then we tell other people, hey, this is how we did it. We tried these other things, they didn't work. And cooking, I love to cook. I love to teach people to cook. I think one of the biggest things that we've lost generationally in this country and in many places in the world, I know people all over the world. I'm an international speaker and I have international patients, so it's not just here. Plus, I grew up in Europe. We're losing generational information about cooking. For many people, just even 10, 15 years younger than me, the last people they can remember cooking in their home is grandma. And people my age and older, maybe we were kind of in that cusp of the changes. I was born in the 60s, where the 50s moms had found some freedom outside the home. And I think that's when we really started to lose that kind of generational information that makes us successful homesteaders. And I say homesteading, but remember, I'm becoming Cherokee. I'm Cherokee, but I wasn't raised that way. And I'm learning that nature cure and being Cherokee, well, they're hand in hand. And so when I think of homesteading, I don't think of it as like I'm a homesteader, even though I identify with everybody who is. I think of it as me becoming Cherokee and learning how to do things that people have forgotten to pass down because maybe they didn't know it either. And all the information's there. So that's me. Let's talk about fermentation. What is it? Why are they so important for our health? And they are, let me tell you. Step-by-step veggie fermentation, we'll go through that. I offer some simple and tasty recipes. I have resources, references, and then at the end I'll show you how you can connect with me. You should have got notes for this. If you're watching this recording and you don't have notes, I will put a link on my Connect page. You'll see it there. I'll add it after I record this presentation, and it'll say download notes, and I'll just put a download link there. That way I don't have to answer a bazillion emails or texts. Not that I don't love y'all, I do. There's an epidemic of antibiotic prescribing going on around the world. And what I hope you'll see as we go through this presentation, the absolute 100% incredible significance of starting to include fermented foods in your diet. There's some really tasty recipes. It's not all kimchi. And even kids like them, right? They like doing it. They like eating it. And you'll see why this is such a good thing. But what is it? Well, it's one of the oldest practices in human history. It dates back, well, they say to 10,000 BCE, but however long you believe the planet has been here, I don't want to argue years with anybody, it's old. In fact, the more and more we learn, the more and more archaeology we do, the more and more pieces we put together, the more we realize that it has probably been happening since, humans were here and needed it. What it does is it transforms and preserves food. And it's common microorganisms that do this. And in the right conditions, those microorganisms are safe. Bacteria, yeast, and mold. These things can transform and preserve food. Like wine, like cheese, like vegetables, like, mashed up grains and very highly nutritious foods. You can ferment so many things. Primarily for humans, and probably the earliest things were fruits, grains, and milk. And I'll tell you, it probably was an accident, right? Where conditions were right and we had spontaneous fermentation. And over time, this could be 10 years, it could be 100 years, it could be a couple of 100 years as people passed information on, who knows. But at some point, the creative and innovative part of what makes us the humans, what differentiates us from, other living organisms on the planet, is that we figured out how to do it on purpose. We probably noticed that that changed food lasted so much longer, and maybe that food tasted good. Maybe that food had the ability to help us connect to our spiritual side or the other world, right? In the form of fermentation that produced mind-altering chemicals within it. I'm sure there were lots of times that people ate something that had fermented and maybe it had got contaminated and they died and nobody knew why, right? That, who knows? But it was fruits, grains, and milk. Oh, see, I had the points on the slide. Sorry. I just get going in the story and I forget to flip the button. So it destroys the harmful, the process of fermentation as these organisms go through their own normal metabolic, like a lactobacillus. You should probably recognize that because that's in yogurt. And in their life cycle, in their eating the substrate, the vegetable or the dairy, like whatever food is being fermented, they outcompete and even destroy, go out, get it, break it down, microorganisms, and often chemicals that are in food. And so they can live. They reach a point, though, where there's not anything left and it doesn't keep fermenting. So the fermenting process reaches a stage, and when those organisms have used up everything, it's relatively it's stable. And they just sit there and they maintain their populations. They can't keep growing. It adds beneficial bacteria. So in certain conditions, and this is all part of believing that the body is a self-healing organism, right? We don't think bugs come in and make us sick. We believe those bugs are around us all the time. All the bugs, the good bugs, the bad bugs, that's a human connotation. Good and bad. They're just bugs. Things out there. Little pieces of this DNA and this cell and that virus. And they're just all out there and they're there all the time. So why aren't we dying from these things? Why aren't we always sick from these things? And it is because any organism, even a human, has to have the right conditions to thrive. And when those conditions for that organism to thrive are present, it will thrive. So if you have something that a bacteria that can be very harmful to humans thrives on, it's going to thrive there. If you take this into the human realm, if our body is not healthy enough, strong enough, or creating an environment that these bugs that are around us all the time don't like, if we create that within ourselves, they don't bother us. Yeah, it may float by, but our immune system's strong, takes care of it. When our body is not as healthy as it should be, or as it could be, or it's in a state of, a certain state, well, I call it unhealthy, and it creates an environment where those bugs will thrive, they will thrive. They'll float on by the same amount that would float on by otherwise, but all of a sudden, here's a home where they can take up residence, multiply, and divide. Because that reproduction of species, continuation of species is, or just the processes of life, is what drives life on this planet. And that happens, reproduction happens to be part of that. So, I have to fix my computer. Sorry. So this process of fermentation creates an environment that attracts the organisms that are very beneficial, and then they can multiply and they can divide. And that's important because they do things for us, right? These beneficial bacteria help us live. They make vitamins, they can process waste stuff, they can secrete things, or in their own metabolic living create things that we need to do better. They're amazing. They do lots of things, right? Beneficial bacteria produce enzymes. This is one thing that they do that I want to talk about in a little bit more detail. They produce enzymes that help us digest and assimilate our nutrients better. Enzymes are all over the body. They're really important, and many things often hinge on those things working better and better. I just did a handout for Beeler's broth, and I'm going to write down to include that handout for you. So, Beeler's broth helps adjust our pH. Fermented foods can also help balance our pH. Okay, Beeler's broth and notes. I'm going to add those links. Okay, if I don't write it down, I'll forget it. So, there's 3 basic kind of fermentations. When you're out there and you're talking fermentation with people, they're either talking about lactic acid, they're talking about ethyl alcohol, they're pyruvate molecules, or acetic acid. We often see vinegar from, acetic acid. You also need some yeast and bacteria as part of that process as well. Lactic acid is going to really be with vegetables, salt, and you need veggie salt and thyme. You also see lactic acid fermentation in foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, yogurt, all these things. The ethyl alcohol, you also have wine, beer, and other alcoholic beverages. We don't make that, but we do sometimes use kefir grains and the acetic acid fermentation. You get an apple cider, which then becomes an apple cider vinegar. So, but it's not alcoholic. It's bubbly. There's many, many, many different organisms out there that we think of as organisms that interact with humans in a beneficial way. Lactococcus, streptococcus, and you might see that and think, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like a good one. Well, in very, very, very small numbers, right? It produces products that are beneficial for us, and it's Thermophilus. It's not Streptococcus, one of the bad ones. We have Lactobacillus, we have Pediococcus and Enterococcus, and just on and on. I won't read through all of these for you. We certainly could talk about it over a cup of tea if you're really interested. Common foods: sauerkraut, kombucha, kimchi, tempeh, kefir, yogurt, miso, and natto, sourdough bread. Anything that takes something to a certain temperature is going to kill the bacteria that are there. And it kills everything, right? And then it can get contaminated afterwards, or it can get inoculated afterwards, or it can start to host organisms afterward. And so many folks have argued over this whole sourdough bread thing because there's no active living cultures in sourdough bread, but sourdough bread and other foods that were fermented at one point, the products of those organisms are left behind, and the heat does not denature them because they're no longer a living system. It's bits and pieces of protein and nucleic acids and different things, right? And for some reason, although I don't know that anybody has really established this through the whole scientific line of literature yet, they're working on it. I know that because I read papers all the time. But there's not a common accepted explanation for why, when you include these foods in your diet, your gut health is also improved. I think it's because they leave behind substrates. So those denatured particles of what was killed by heat are still there. And when it comes out, it somehow combines with whatever else you're eating and the bread itself to help those renature back together in some way, or for the pieces and parts of them to be used by healthy or bug guts. Beer, cider, wine, pickles. Pickles can be fermented. Pickles can also just be pickled, right? So you're really after the fermented pickles, which taste excellent. And they're fermented. Cultured butter is a great example of a fermented food that can last a really, really long time. Of course, your aged cheeses and vinegars. So I keep touching on this, why are they so important to health? And of course, they produce shelf-stable foods. And that was probably the reason why humans really gravitated toward this to begin with. It creates a diverse population of microorganisms. And this diversity really has a positive impact on health. When we think about human health and we think about the things that we want to focus on making better for ourselves because we know it leads to a better quality of life and longevity, something that can do all of the following is a pretty amazing food. It's food as medicine. We have evidence for improved digestion. That means breaking down foods, assimilating the nutrients, moving things through the GI tract, and eliminating. Well, eliminating is not usually part of digesting, but up until that point, weight management, a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes, improved glucose handling, right? Your blood sugar. It helps you with your blood sugar. It can help reduce muscle soreness, especially following exercise. We see the mental emotional sphere experience a positive effect from fermented foods. And we see the diverse gut, right? All those bugs that are so good for us. So antibiotics, I've mentioned, stress and other environmental factors damage the human microbiome every day, especially in the gut. When it becomes so off balance and so poor in its composition, we get symptoms. They show up as disease, and they can vary. We can have fatigue, headaches, joint pain, nutrient deficiencies, toxin buildup, GI problems, autoimmune disease, cancer, skin disorders, poor cognition, ADD, ADHD, ODD, all of those, diabetes, hypertension. Well, so basically, they can be almost anything, right? When our gut does not have all those commensal bacteria that work with us to give us a wonderful, healthy, long life, and it gives them a wonderful life. So, there are some people that I've worked with over the last 20 years, some sick people, that completely healed and completely turned their life around simply because they reestablished a healthy gut. No other holistic medicine, therapy is bad, though. I'm not saying that they don't, it's not that those don't help, but this reestablishing a diverse and healthy gut environment is critical. And look at this. This is from the NIH, right? This is not even just from studies within my own profession, but from the NIH. They've been able to establish a complex ecosystem of approximately 300 to 500 bacterial species. It's nearly 2 million genes that we interact with, that we exchange, that keeps us alive and we keep them alive. That's the relationship that we have with these things. Just one round of antibiotics at any point in someone's life, the earlier the worse. But just one round, severe stress or illness, including GI illness, and the microbiome is compromised, perhaps for life. I'm not trying to doomsday it, because we can compensate for this, so there's always hope. But nobody knew that this was going to be the downside of antibiotics. You keep somebody alive and now they're doomed to a really significantly challenged rest of their life, unless they've got a good doctor that immediately can go through things like this with them and help them. Now, maybe you're thinking, like I did before I learned all this stuff, well, I take a probiotic, because I did that before I went to medical school. You know, I could read Nature and Prevention and all that. Reader's Digest had a great little health thing they put out. And I went to the local health food store. I love those people. I loved how it smelled. I liked shots of wheatgrass. I had no idea how good it was for me. I just thought it tasted good. But, so I was on a probiotic, and when I learned this, I knew right away that we haven't educated the doctors or the public about how important this actually is. This is critical to being able to regain health. Most probiotic supplements contain only 5 to 6 strains on average. So you've taken some antibiotics, gotten really sick, something's happened, and you've wiped out so many of the 300 to 500 species that we need. These were healthy. This wasn't just what's there. These were things that have been shown to that the body does better when this complex ecosystem exists. So, yay, if you're taking a probiotic, it's not enough. You've got to add fermented foods. There isn't a probiotic on the shelf that does for you what a fermented food does. So here's some examples. Sauerkraut, 28 distinct bacterial strains. Kimchi, up to 900 different lactic acid bacteria strains. That's amazing. Kefir, or kefir, depends where you come from, what you call it, up to 61. Kombucha, over 50. Yogurt, 4 to 6. Yogurt's good. How many people go get yogurt when they've had antibiotics? It's good. It's not enough. Miso, 4 to 56. It depends what part of the world it's made in and the starters it came from. Natto, 59. And fermented veggies, not kimchi, provide 4 to 24. We do a lot of these foods. We do kefir. And when I say we do kefir, that means I cook with it, I bake with it, and we also drink a little 1 ounce shot glass of it from time to time. It's a little sour, but man, it's teeming, right? With all kinds of good stuff for us. I don't do kombucha. I could. I need to get some water grains. All I have are milk grains, kefir grains. Yogurt, for some reason, I struggle with yogurt. If I do it in the crock pot overnight, it's great, but only if I use a culture from another yogurt. I'm still figuring it out. But apparently you can do it from kefir. Miso, I used to eat miso a lot. I also lived in Asia for several years, and I love miso. It's on my list of things to make for us, soy, miso, and I'm going to ferment those. Soy has to ferment for a year. Sauerkraut we do. Kimchi, we're going to start that journey next month. And we do fermented veggies. That's a big thing. I brought some with me to show folks tonight. You may have already seen them. Okay, so how do you do this wonderful, awesome stuff? Because this is the hope. This is the hope for the human gut. Well, I'll tell you how. I mean, this is how we do it. We sterilize the jars. I do this. Normally, I am not overly freaked out about things like washing things with warm soapy water, run them through the dishwasher. I'm fine with that. I believe that if there's anything on there, whatever I'm putting in that jar is going to outcompete it, and we're going to be fine. Plus, I'm careful, right? I follow temperature guides. I use the lids that pop up if there's some kind of gas in the thing, and those are not supposed to be. So we wash, however you do this, sterilize your jars. This is how I do it. Prep veggies. So we do wash them, and we're not buying food that has coatings on it or sprays on it or wax. But if you do, there are all of these sprays or vinegar, baking soda, and water. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. If you buy your veg in the store, even if you're buying organic, you want to get those coatings off of it. Slice, dice, shredder, grate, whatever you want. I have some that are sliced and I have some that are grated. I'm getting ready to do a red cabbage. So I met my husband in Germany and he was a fermented cabbage connoisseur. Red cabbage, sauerkraut, all these things. And so we're going to start doing that for him because he's such a guy. You want to make a brine. It depends how salty you like things. We use 2 tablespoons to 1 quart of water. 3 is too salty for us, and 1 is, I wish there was a little bit more salt. So for us, it's 2 tablespoons. You can just, remember that salt in there will kind of fade over time. So we did a taste test, and we did 1, 2, and 3, but 1 was salty enough while it was fresh, but not after some time had gone by. So make a brine. Then once you have your jars and they're cooled, obviously, you're going to add your veg to the jar relatively loosely. You don't pack it in like when you can. Now, it's hard to do with shredded stuff. And so if what you're fermenting is shredded, I recommend that you stir it periodically every day. Add the veg to the jar. Pour the brine over the veggies. You have to make sure the veg is covered. And you want to press it down. You want to get any air out. Put a glass weight or a spring cap to keep the veggies submerged. Some people have a cup that fits right in their jar that they ferment in. Well, whatever you have to do, you want to keep the veggies below that liquid. You can use a self-venting lid and screw it on tightly, or you can burp your jars over time. Gas builds up. Like, these are living organisms producing gas, and so it'll explode if you don't. And you ferment at room temperature on the counter for about 3 days. You'll know it's ready when it starts to get a little bubbly and it has a sour scent. We usually taste to see, does it have that beginning of fermentation. Once you know what it tastes like, you can't miss it. And then all the whole time, make sure it's covered. Then you put it in the refrigerator. It takes about a week to finish fermenting. You can add herb spices and things like that to the jar. The sky's the limit. Whatever you want to do. Here is one of my favorite places to get recipes. She's got some quick ideas as well that I have here, and I put them in your notes in case you don't want to go clicking about the internet. We've done carrot, garlic, and the black peppercorns and dried dill, and it was good. I bet fresh dill would be even better. We don't care for cauliflower, so I haven't done that one. Green beans, dill, garlic, and peppercorns, that one. We're going to do the radish, jalapeno, onion, and carrots. Sliced peeled beets, that I'm looking forward to that when we harvest beets. The resources that I mentioned, the lids and the caps here, I found those on Amazon. I'm sure if we had gone around to like Creekside or any of the stores from the farmers around us here and down by where we are, we probably could have found these things, but I didn't have time to drive around. So I got them on Amazon. They were not expensive. I think the whole bill was $20 maybe. And so I have links to these and they are in your notes, but I also know that it can be challenging to type all of that stuff in. So I'll tell you at the end how to get all the links for everything in one place. I wanted to let you know, because people ask me all the time after these, what else do I do? So I'll just tell you, a lot of what I do is free. So if you come hear me live or I pop something on social media, it's free. You can watch it. I ask that you don't take it as your own, but it's definitely out there. But I do have some courses that are longer courses and modules, and it teaches you how to do something, teaches you how to fish. It doesn't give you the fish. And that is herbal medicine making at home. It's a recorded series. 1-2-3 Homeopathy Workshop. That is also recorded and do at your own pace. And that is for not the practitioner level training, but for someone who just wants to start using homeopathy more efficiently. So you may know a couple of remedies, you might have a kit, but if you really want to wrap your head around how to do this and have a place to start studying, that's a good one. Hydrotherapy trainings I do live. You just have to watch for announcements. I don't record those. They're live. Now, you can, if you don't want to write this down, or you can take a picture of that. Your phone should connect to that. If you would like an email with all the links of the stuff I talked to, the lids, all that stuff, all the websites, send an email to fermentation@ecampnd.com. I don't check this email. This is an automatic email, meaning you're going to email it. I've already written the email. I've put the links. I've put everything where it needs to be. And when you email that, you're going to get a reply. If you want to get in touch with me, it's ecampnd@gmail.com. That's the email that I check. There's my phone number. That's my website. And if you have any questions at all, if you're watching this as a recording, right, reach out to me or connect with me in the Homestead group or whatever. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm so glad that you could get to see this. I hope you get started fermenting because, man, you can make some yummy food, right? My 15, almost 16-year-old grabbed the jar out of the refrigerator. We did carrots and onions and garlic, and they're always hungry. I swear I have no idea where the food goes because they're constantly eating, but they're also both over 6 feet now, so maybe that's where it's going. And he opened the jar, and I didn't say anything, right? And he took a carrot and onion out, popped in his mouth. He went, that's good. And that was like after 3 days in the fridge of fermenting. So that makes me feel good. I like my family to eat. I know what he just put in his body. Like, his body was just flooded with all these great, bugs, and he liked it. It tasted good. And so I didn't have to say, eat your fermented food. Like, that's for me. I don't want people to tell me what to eat. So anyway, thank you. Ferment away. And I hope to see y'all at the ranch sometime. Thanks.